Welcome back to the Step Through, a weekly show about the WNBA, hosted by myself, Sabreena Merchant, alongside Evan Gualberto. Apologies for the lack of an episode last week. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back for our fourth episode of the season. And the basketball's getting really good, Evan. I had a delightful time watching the WNBA the last 2 weeks. What about you?
Well, I mean, we were going to do Fever Lynx as our game of the week. So that's what it would have been last week. It was good. The games are a lot of kicking going on lately.
A lot of kicking.
Yeah. A lot of ejections, a lot of techs, but
in between all of that, there's some good basketball happening. I had forgotten about Fever Lynx. I watched far more of that game than I expected for it involving the Fever and the Lynx, but hey, I'm always here for a good Cale McBride time. So, yeah. Notre Dame.
Yeah. Who's impressed you this week?
Well, other than Cale McBride,
of course,
who actually had a very nice game against Seattle in that nationally televised game. What was it, on Tuesday or Wednesday? She just has to do so much on offense for Minnesota right now with what they're working with. I also really like Milic on Minnesota. She just has really good touch around the rim. I had never heard of her coming into this season. I'm not sure if I was supposed to have heard of her coming into this season, but there's a lot of good stuff going on there. I don't anticipate that Minnesota's going to win a lot of games. I keep hearing that this is very much just like the WNBA, working it so that they get to replace Sylvia Fowles with Leah Boston next year, which, I mean, that'd be great. Boston v. McBride, like, let's do this. But yeah, I like that duo in Minnesota quite a bit, even though I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure how much of the Lynx I will be watching going forward if the situation remains as it is for the 3-12 team. But yeah, I do need to meaningfully start this episode with an apology to Mike Thibault, who I had already removed from Executive of the Year consideration for the Ryan Howard trade. I'm not saying that he's going to regret not having Ryan Howard, but to get Shakira Austin and the rights to swap for that Sparks pick next year, which I had excluded from consideration the first time around, that's not a bad deal, considering how the Sparks are doing and considering how Shakira Austin is doing, because baby, Shakira Austin looks like a WNBA veteran immediately. She was making Tina Charles look silly in their games against the Mercury this week. I've noticed that Charles has had difficulty posting up, which is weird considering how much spacing like Phoenix actually has on their team, but Austin was posting up Charles like it was nobody's business. I didn't realize that rookies could do that to Tina Charles. Her movement off the ball is awesome too. She just consistently cuts into the right spot on the floor. Did a lot of that against Phoenix, which again, like, not the best defense in the world, when you're playing against the Mercury, but did it again against the Liberty this week. Just has a really good sense of where she's supposed to be. And then her defense, like the fact that she's starting over Elizabeth Williams, who is ostensibly brought in to anchor that Washington defense, and the Mystics are not missing a beat because of it. Like, they're actually better off because of it. I think, like, her size, her quickness, like, she is so much fun to watch. And I think, was it Richard Cohen pointed out on Twitter about her efficiency, like shooting wise. I think she's close to 60% from the fields as a rookie, which is astounding. Like, there are maybe a handful of players in WNBA history at any level of experience who have done that. So kudos to Shakira Austin, kudos to Mike Thibault, mea culpa on that one.
Oh, yeah. To your point about her moving in space, God, there were a couple plays against the Liberty that like kind of stood out to me, where it's like, yeah, I don't want to get too technical. Out of the triangle offense, that's where like I originally learned of it, is a wing player throws the ball to the corner, and then Shakira's in the post right on the low block. She sets a back screen for that wing player to cut through, and then she sets a ball screen, so it's a corner pick and roll, and I think it was Natasha Howard guarding her, and then she just rolls into space, is able to catch and finish before anybody can recover. And then there's another one where I think it was a drag screen, and then she rolls, and then Natasha Howard is waiting at the basket, and then somebody else coming in, and then she spins to split them, and then finishes at the rim with, I think, her left hand. I was just like, I mean, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to be able to get to it during the season, but It's like I have already begun work on a Shakira Austin video for all
Yeah.
interested parties. She's just very good.
She's also an excellent offensive rebounder. She just battles. Um, just a lot to like about her game, and she's not doing too much. Like I mentioned, the post ups on Tina Charles, like she's not calling for the ball often in the post, unlike other bigger centers in the league. She still stays in the play even when the ball is not entered into her. I'm a fan. She's just really, really good this early. Um, Already just making our wild proclamations about Ryan Howard Rookie of the Year looking a little silly already, because I do believe that this is actually a race. And the fact that she's doing it on a team that is contending and like requires more of her when Elena Delle is out with her scheduled rest, it's very impressive.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that she scales up and she scales down relative to whoever's in the lineup. There's that one in the fourth quarter where it's a pick and roll with her and Rui, and she rolls and Rui throws it and it's a little high, so she kind of like volleyballs it to herself, she like or ping pongs it to herself, and is able to catch and I think fades away. Again, on Natasha Howard, all of these things very impressive on Natasha Howard.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Rui throws some wild passes.
Yeah, that
she's doing a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of people lately throwing a lot of like really mind-bending passes, let's say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like you have more to add on that particular topic, Evan.
No, I think the people have seen the highlight at this point.
Okay, got it.
So if you would like to talk about her.
No, Rui's a lot of fun. I think we can stop with the mind-bending passes with her, because I did think it was really funny how defenses are playing Rui to just like every time she runs a pick and roll, the two defenders just hug the other player involved because they know that she has zero intention to score. Like there's just giant oodles of space around her every time she has ball screen. So hopefully the scoring assertiveness comes as the season goes along, because Washington could use just some of that from Machida.
So the most interesting part about players who are like pass first, and it's not just pass first, it's like pass exclusively or nothing, is as the season progresses, I hope to see Rui start to pass fake to score. Like very rarely do you ever see players who use the threat of passing to create scoring opportunities. It's always the other way around. But yeah, I think Rui is gonna, if she adds it into her bag, as they say, come the playoffs. Crazy.
Yeah, just a lot of good things going on with that Mystics team. And I don't think it's an accident that like Shakira has looked at her best moving off the ball when Delle is playing, because there's just a lot of attention focused elsewhere. She's just been wonderful. It is really impossible to describe how smooth Elena is just in everything she does on the court. I can't figure out another way to say it. It's consistently smooth over and over again. Even when the shot goes in, doesn't go in, you're just surprised by the outcome because everything looks right as she's working. And I'm very hopeful that this aggressive load management plan keeps her healthy for a extended playoff run.
Just want to point out to the viewers that I think last we spoke, I was looking forward to you watching the Mystics, and here we are leading up an episode with you having watched the Mystics. Good stuff. It
is good stuff. I mean, they just know what they're doing. It's very well-oiled machine. I just want Myisha Hines-Allen to get me some more fantasy points. So let's work on that, Myisha. Okay. Needs to happen. All right. Moving on to the next thing that really interests me this week. The Connecticut Sun waiving Yvonne Anderson. Not so much that they waived Yvonne Anderson, but just the idea that they would lose a point guard for the season and then double down on that by waiving another point guard to bring in Jasmine Jones. They're really committing to their jumbo lineup, and I'm so glad, because you just got to get your best players on the court together somehow. And we saw during the postseason last year, they had zero faith in playing Alyssa, Bree, and Jonquel together because they just had no practice time, like no way of actually making it happen. And when the alternatives are like more Natisha, I'm not saying that Natisha Hydeman's bad, but like they've already stretched their guards pretty thin in terms of how many minutes Courtney Williams and Hydeman are playing. And because their identity is this long, aggressive, defensive team, it makes sense to have the players who embody that identity on the court at all times. And their jumbo lineup stats are just hilarious. Like, if they have all four on the court, they've got, when I say all four, I mean DeWanna, Bree Jones, Jonquel Jones, and Alyssa Thomas. Their net rating is plus 32 in the 73 minutes they've played together, which is just astounding. How they can create space in that configuration, like, just boggles my mind. But a lot of good high-low passing going on. I mean, Bree Jones, another really good player cutting off the ball. Jonquel, in these instances, is basically your small forward who just sort of spots up and is unguardable. Like, if anybody tries to even put a hand in her face, or she just, like, takes a little casual drive to the basket if someone tries to close out on her. Even when it's just like Alyssa, Jonquel, and Bree Jones, and you've got two guards with them, like, that's 76 minutes of plus 18 net rating. If you've got like DeWanna, Jonquel, and Bree Jones, like, I mean, that's basically a traditional lineup. Like, that's working just fine. But so long as JJ's on the court, who's like masquerading as the small forward, it just works. And I realized we've talked some about how, we want to see her more involved in the offense, just relative to the MVP that she is. But I think even if her like output is a little bit more muted, the fact that the way she's playing allows for all of Connecticut's other best players to be on the court is just an overall win for the Sun. So I'm here for the jumbo lineups. It's so fun to watch. Like, I just want all of the Suns' best players to be playing, and that's what Curt Miller is doing. And I do not envy the Connecticut Sun play-by-play guy who will one day have to distinguish between Jasmine Jones, Jasmine Thomas, Bree Jones, Jonquel Jones. Jasmine Jones and Jonquel Jones, who both go by JJ, by the way.
Yeah, I think maybe, I mean, she's the MVP. So if anybody has to give up the nickname, it's going to have to be Jazz. Yeah, first thing I thought of when they signed Jazz is, another offensive rebounder.
That's what I tweeted too.
Oh, that's right. Maybe that's why I thought of it. But yeah, they're 100% leaning into, we don't really care anymore. We're just gonna offensive rebound. Maybe they won't be. Actually, I think they've moved up in the defensive rebounding team numbers, but they've moved down in the offensive rebounding team numbers. Not by a lot, but just enough. Yeah, it's just, can't believe we talked for 2 episodes about Yvonne Anderson. Now Yvonne's gone.
I just think it's interesting that, like, as there has been somewhat of a stylistic shift in WNBA to go a little bit smaller, like, we don't see as many of the bigger post playing centers. Like, Vegas has gone full spread this year. Like, it's just nice that there, and like, teams don't really prioritize the offensive glass. It's nice that there's a team that's just like, F it, we're gonna just do what works with our personnel, even if it's not how the rest of the league is going. And the fact that they were able, to like compete with the Aces playing that way, and like now we're going to see them against the Storm this weekend. I am very interested to see how it works out against teams that have traditionally given the Sun some difficulty with their, spread offenses. But I'm glad that they're working it through during the regular season so that it's not like a card that they can't play in the playoffs.
Right. I see this with certain teams where it's like you're zigging when the league is zagging, is because you have to win margins that like nobody else is really competing with. Mm-hmm. Like if you think about the NBA specifically, like the Toronto Raptors just get after the offensive glass like crazy because their personnel looks very different from the rest of the NBA. With the W, like if the Sun are doing that, then they have that jumbo lineup like you're talking about. They have Jazz, who, I mean, the only person who hypothetically shouldn't be offensive rebounding is Natish Heidemann.
Right.
Yeah, you just throw everybody on the offensive glass. What's second, third, fourth chance opportunities when you have that type of size?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I just think it's interesting that like they I mean, I don't want to see Alyssa Thomas like more as a point guard. Like we've talked about this, how I like her more as the secondary creator, but it just seems like the more they lean into this lineup, the more the ball spreads, and like we're seeing more point DeWanna, which you and I have talked about as a thing that like even last season as a thing that you and I both really like. So hopefully that's a thing that happens more at the point DeWanna, because you just got to make the defense think a little. Like it's just too predictable when Alyssa's running the same actions and there's a certain way to guard her. But anyway, less on that. I just will reconvene when I see how it works against the Storm, because Lord knows the Storm have been a devastating opponent for the Sun in recent years. But speaking of the Storm, just another lineup that I really like is their stupidly good defensive lineup with Briann January, Jewell Loyd, Gabby Williams, Stewie, and Ezi. maybe like 5 people you'd consider for all defense, honestly. And the numbers haven't quite borne it out. Like their defensive rating is basically the same as like the second best in the league. It's not incredibly suffocating yet, but it just looks impossible to score on. Like Briann January, you could put her on any lead ball handler in the league, and I would expect her to win that matchup. Like she was shutting down Kelsey Plum in that second game of the season, and like Kelsey Plum has looked damn near unstoppable every time somebody else has tried to put a body in front of her. You know, Gabby Williams can just masterfully toggle between all of these forward wing positions. She can even guard some 5s in a pinch because she's just got really good base when she's defending in the post. Ezi, maybe defensive player of the year right now. Like, what can she do? Even her blocks all stay in bounds. Like, she's just creating instant offense on those possessions. Stewie, we've obviously just, what more is there to be said about Stewie's defense? And then like Jewell Loyd's screen navigation, I think, has been really good this year too. So just the level of just the constraints that lineup puts on you defensively, I do wonder how Seattle scores with it, to be perfectly honest, because speaking of wild passes being thrown, Briann January has thrown some bonkers passes in the last few games that I watched for the Storm, and not in a good way. And Gabby Williams, I don't really know what she does on offense other than just, you know, the Connecticut Sun motto of just railing in for offensive rebounds now and again. So it often comes down to just Noelle Quinn calls a timeout. They just space a Jewell Loyd, Breanna Stewart pick and roll, and that generally makes good things happen because Stewie's excellent at sealing off the switch. But you can't like lean on that 5 too much, you know, without Sue Bird because of just the lack of overall offensive creation. But I think down the stretch of games, it's not a bad backup to turn to because, again, where is the weak link that you're attacking?
Shout out to Em Adler. Not a fan of this very stupid nickname I've come up with. I mean, it's not really. It's BLEWS, Blues, right? If you can survive going offense, defense, like that lineup defensively, I think is eventually going to their average numbers at this point. But hopefully, like as the season progresses, it's going to bear out as a very special defensive unit because like they're so good. There's so much length. There's so much switchability. And not just the switchability, but like the switchability and trust that the help will be there and will continue to recover behind. Like that's all terrific, terrific stuff.
What's crazy is their offense is actually gangbusters with that lineup right now. It's like 117 points for 100 possessions, which would easily lead the league. But I'm not buying it. It's got to be just like a series of Briann January threes that happened on like a few possessions that's making it look better. But keeping an eye out. Another Connecticut Seattle thing to watch out for is if we didn't have enough of those.
There are only really 5 teams in the league.
Only 5 teams that we
yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I think an interesting point is like I would like to see how much these lineups play against like starter level lineups because that might be the thing, right? What do the other teams' lineups look like? Because if they're playing against bench units, yeah, I expect this type of production to keep up.
Sure.
But eventually at some point, teams are going to be like, oh, that's the lineup they're playing. Well, we can't just rest our players. Like it's just unreasonable. Yeah.
Or they could just, go the Noelle Quinn route of saying, I don't care if you're playing your starters. I'm going to play my 5 bench guys to start the fourth quarter. But probably my favorite thing about the Storm Lynx game this week actually was that with Sue Bird out, Noelle Quinn was dedicated to having one of Stewie or Jewell on the court at all times, which can we do more of that? Just please.
Novel concept.
They are really good together though, I have yet to see a team just adequately defend their pick and roll, which you'd think it's just very simple, like you try to switch, Stewie pummels you, you don't switch, then Stewie slips, or I don't know. There's not a lot of good options, but that's why it's nice when one of them is always on the court to make things happen. Yeah.
Adding another thing to her already impressive like offensive arsenal, like a short roll technician is what Stewie has become. And she always had, not always, but I've seen it slowly progress over time where she catches on the short roll and she's able to hit a jumper. I think, her college coach, Gino Arima, once upon a time, like before she was even, I think it was her second year in college or something like that, I was watching a documentary where he was talking to his assistant coaches where Stewie was taking off balance jumpers. And he was just like, yeah, as long as she gets her shoulders square to the rim, like she's making it, like I have no doubt that that's going in. And it's just like, Yeah, that's basically it. If you watch her feet, like her footwork is pristine, but when she can't get her feet set underneath her, she's still square. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, it's been a incredible season for Stewie so far. Like, because Seattle has been kind of middling overall, I think remarkably, Breanna Stewart has fallen a little bit under the radar, but she's, scoring leader in the league by a comfortable margin right now. Just doing a lot for Seattle. And I don't know, that's just another one of those things where I find it hard to bet against a team that's playing Seattle when they can just get the ball into her at the end of the game. Like we saw it against the Wings last week, right? Where the Wings were making this really nice comeback, and then all the Storm needed to do after that ATO was just clear aside, get the ball to Stewie. She just immediately draws fouls, and that's what happens. I think we can skip this week's Spark Joy section because all they did was play the Aces. So on to the next one.
Well, yeah, I mean, right there. Speaking of the Aces, right? Yeah, our game of the week was the 1 p.m. Eastern, which
10 a.m. for me. I had a great time.
Yeah. A lot of people had problems with, but you explained to me that it was a camp game, and I asked you, what is a camp game? What is a camp game?
Camp game is something that WNBA teams do during the summer, where they invite all of the local summer camps to just spend the day with them watching a WNBA game. And it ends up being one of the loudest crowds of the season, honestly, because kids of that age, like in the 8 to 12 range, are just decibel levels louder than most adult fans attending a game. And yeah, they have to play during the daytime because that is when summer camps are held. But I think it's a great idea because as someone who has attended a camp game, it's like sometimes it's one of the only opportunities that these kids get to watch WNBA game. Like sometimes they're just unaware of the fact that they exist. And it's just a nice way of introducing, the team to the city and guaranteeing a pretty good crowd. Even if it is a little awkward for the West Coast teams that have to do camp days in further east time zones. Em Adler, another shout out for them, it pointed out that the Aces have a camp game in New York later this season too, which is just going to be even better for the Pacific time people who cover them.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy. I mean, there are going to be, if there weren't already, there are lots and lots and lots of Asia Wilson fans in Texas now. Like, yeah, they're already like huge game. Kelsey Plum, another one. The
although she said that she sucked in that game.
Well, yeah, I mean the shots she made were pretty fantastic. But yeah, she was gunning. She was gunning that game. I really enjoy the idea of camp games because I mean something I think is really cool that the Washington Mystics organization does is when they have the kids camps, junior NBA for the Wizards and Mystics, they give out tickets to the Mystics game. So like I'll end up going to a Mystics game and seeing some of the kids that I was coaching at these camps. It's among one of the cooler things and great product. And like the more kids see it, know it, it's in their vicinity neighborhood. Like it's cool.
The last one I actually went to was actually in 2016, so it's been a while. But it was a Sparks Lynx game the year they played each other in the finals. So two just excellent teams, and it ended up coming down to Candace Parker having to deliberately miss a free throw because they were down by 3, and she just immediately kicked it out to Chrissy Dolliver, who made the jumper, but her foot was on the line. So it was just an incredible finishing sequence for her. Camp game at Staples Center. But yeah, I have a particular fondness for those, even if I understand for the working public, it's a little challenging to schedule in a 10 a.m. game to your viewing habits.
Yeah, I don't care about those people. For the kids, it's always for the kids.
For the kids, yeah. Let's talk Aces Wings. These days we'll do a game of the week that doesn't involve the Aces, the Wings, or the Sun, but this is not that week. We tried last week, but technology was not on our side. A lot of things stuck out to me from this game. I'm gonna just start with the most random of them because that is, I think, what works best for us. A lot of Awak Kuir going on in this game, and multiple reasons for that because Satu Sabui obviously out with a knee injury. That's just devastating for the Wings, who have won small forward size player on their roster, and Alicia Gray basically used Satu as her backup. And she is also starting at center for them. So like just her versatility between the front court positions is really important for Dallas to hit its optimal lineup combinations, which ding, ding, ding is something we talk about all the time. But that meant that we got a lot of a walk because Isabel Harrison was in foul trouble. And the wing is not a great Tierra McCowan matchup because of their general pace, right? So this is why you draft a player with the physical tools of a Wakuir. You know, she's really long. She's got good lateral mobility. Still just a tough matchup for her because, again, the Aces are a wrecking crew. Like, that's what they do. It doesn't matter if it's 10 a.m. for their local body clocks. Like, it doesn't matter if Jackie Young is returning for the first time in 2.5 weeks and can't really do Jackie Young things, honestly. Like, we can talk about that later, but there was a definite like, oh, maybe she didn't have to play this game situation for me. But yeah, so Kawir ends up in a lot of offensive situations where she's running pick and roll with Marina Mabrey. And I'm not going to say that Marina threw her the best passes all the time. Like, you know, one of them was a little late where like the ball is basically leading a walk into the backboard and she has to settle it and like start over again. There's like a lob that gets into her that is not quite thrown as well as it could be. And, you know, she just can't go up with it. But like in general, if there is one thing I want a Wakuir to be focusing on, it's finishing strong around the basket. And given her build, finishing strong is challenging because she's thin, you know, she's limber, a lot of other words we could use to describe a walk. But it was maddening to see the space that she had around the basket and not being able to convert those opportunities. One in particular in the fourth quarter, which, oh God, like I apologize to Wings fans for bringing this up again because it was just a freaking disaster. Like, I think it was Isabel Harrison who got swatted at the rim by Asia. And then Awak just has a wide open putback attempt and shorts it. Just has to be better there. I know that she's not technically in the game to score. She's doing a pretty decent job of rebounding on both ends, honestly. No one's stopping Asia, but like I didn't think she was terrible in individual defense. But God, the finishing around the rim is ugh.
Yeah. 4 offensive rebounds though.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a working hard to get them, just kind of in the right place, but it's a skill to be in the right place. You know, the Awak project is always interesting. It makes me feel good that, you know, she was one of the top picks in the draft last year. And, you know, Dallas plays all of their top picks, of course. You know, anyway, yeah, we can talk more about that some other time.
I did think Vegas did a really good job of like challenging her defensively when she was in the game. Like, Dear Hamby was setting some screens that were just stupid high, like 4 feet beyond the 3-point line, and just making her try to cover Kelsey Plum in space, which is just rude to a second-year player, honestly. Like that's mean. That's mean. And for the kids to have to watch that was offensive, honestly.
Yeah, there's no more need to. Yeah, we
she
can move
also
on.
fell for this like pass fake from Asia Wilson, and then Asia just blew by her on a drive to her right hand. Don't let Asia drive to her right. Like you have zero chance of doing anything to affect that. But like the amount of space that Vegas creates for her now with 4 shooters surrounding her, the help's not coming. She's not going to miss, and she's just so fast and like composed going in that direction. So like if she says she's going to go left, like just let it happen. You know, like don't bite on the fake. Dallas gambled so much in this game. Like we've talked about their aggressive defense. To me, it was just like a smidge too much against an offense that is as talented as this Vegas team. It seems like you have something you want to say about that. Let's get into it.
Okay. I guess the best way to illustrate is back-to-back possessions where so rough. Back-to-back possessions where it ends up with Arike as the backline defender, or the low man, the help side, all of that stuff. And so it just got, what's the nicest way to phrase this? Chelsea Gray got a layup largely because, and it's not necessarily Enrique's fault, but it was an isolation situation where it looks like somebody's going to come set a screen and Marina is trying to eat up space. Everybody's committed, so you can't really leave Plum. Jackie's in the opposite corner and Chelsea is driving. Enrique has to like commit. She doesn't, and Chelsea gets a layup. She gets like a true like we're doing layup lines type layup. And then it wasn't the next possession because I think the Aces had another offensive possession after this. But the ball is Kayla and Leash are like doubling, or at least Leash is digging in on Asia. And she's the only one on the left side. And so Enrique is all the way in the opposite corner again, guarding Jackie, who, didn't have a great game this game. She rotates over, and like, this isn't just a criticism of Enrique because like could have been any of the wings players. When Asia Wilson beats you to the basket, that's it. That's not a big deal. She's very good. But like, we've all seen how fast Enrique can accelerate going from point A to point B. If she wanted to get there, she could have gotten there, I think. And I don't know. I mean, when you have Jackie Young in the corner and like, yeah, don't leave Jackie Young. Don't go under the screens on Jackie Young. But you have to trust that you can get to a spot and then your team will rotate to make up for the opening that you left behind by rotating. You have to trust that that's there. And either she couldn't get there, which I doubt, or she didn't trust that, like, we as a team could cover that gap. So I don't know what it is, but I think, it just doesn't. There are times where it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, and you think a team like Dallas in particular that prides itself on just maniacally running all over the court, like they help each other, like they're always running all over the place. Sometimes I think the pressure is, again, heightened a little bit too much, but like this is a team that over helps, not just sits there and waits for people to finish around the basket when they could do something about it. We could probably talk a little bit about how Enrique was just stupid fun on offense in this game. Some of the things that she was able to do. Vegas is in situations where they play three bigs in their second unit with Dearica Hamby and two of plays on Stokes and Asia Wilson. And that means Hamby's guarding a perimeter player on those situations. And so she's guarding Enrique a lot. One possession just uses burst to get right by Hamby all the way to the cup. So then Hamby tries to adjust, plays off a little bit on the ensuing possession. Enrique, step back, and just pure, right? Just the things that she is able to do offensively. Some of the shots that she gets up where you mentioned this with Stewie, where it looks like she has absolutely no balance, but then just squares herself to the basket and boom, like we've been watching Enrique Kumbawale do this for a few years now. It's just maddening to watch all of that talent harnessed on the offensive end and not on the other end of the court.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, like I think she only had one made field goal in each quarter in the second half. In the third, she had this like weird going to the right off of Chicago action. I think she was attacking plaisance, and then she's able to either jab or pound dribble into plaisance to get her off balance. And this is where Enrique's deceleration ability is like second to none, right? She's able to stop on a dime. And again, she looks like she's completely off balance. Jackie Young is there with the contest and like her feet don't even look set, but she's able to cash it. And it's just, there's nothing you can do.
I think in my notes for that specific play I wrote, how is this a good shot?
It wasn't.
But it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
They needed offense in that quarter.
They did.
Okay, so I did bring up that Dearica had some difficulty guarding Enrique in this game, which probably undersells the job that Hamby did overall, because although Enrique really got going in the first half, like you mentioned, not a ton of individual offense later on in the game. And I thought that the adjustments that Vegas made in the second half to really account for all of the pressure Dallas was putting so high up on the perimeter were really interesting. Chief among them, like Dearica Hamby, just like turning away from screens and just slipping into space. Love when Hamby does that. Her off-ball instincts are awesome. And again, when you play with an offense like Vegas, where you have four shooters spread around the perimeter, and I'm including Asia Wilson in this because did you see that corner three that she took? Lordy. There is always going to be an opening in the lane if, Dallas comes up really high on the ball, which this is the Dallas Wings. That's what they're going to do. I thought Hamby was excellent at that. Isabel Harrison got to keep a better eye on those back cuts. I mean, not a fine defensive game for Isabel Harrison today. Hamby also just menace in transition as per usual. I don't think any big in the league runs the floor as hard as Derek Hamby. Maybe Nneka Ogwumike accepted, but like Hamby is just always finishing on runouts. If she's the one that creates the turnover, like making the right decisions on the break, just a lot of good things from Hamby overall, and that ability to like just grease the offense by making Dallas pay for their aggression, I thought was really important in the second half.
Yeah, I think the one that stands out to me is 8 minutes left in the fourth, where Chelsea is trying to enter the ball into Asia, and Kayla Thornton is doing a great job denying her. So Chelsea does the head nod to go back door. Asia starts to do it, and then Dearica just like hard steps when moves to go through. And it's just Dearica Hamby is like, I'll keep talking about it. Like, I don't care if she starts or not. Like, she should be an all-star. I really want her to be an all-star.
I care if she starts because she's playing 6 more minutes a game this year than last year when she didn't start. So matters.
Sorry, I meant start the all-star game.
Oh, okay.
They got voted in. That's an important distinction. Great point.
Yes.
No, I want her to be an all-star regardless of starter status. For Becky Hammond, she has to start.
Yeah.
If Becky's only going to play 7, 6, 5, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, Hamby's going to be out there.
The Aces have 3 games this season, including this one where their bench has been scoreless and they've won. Like, at what point do you just not guard the bench players?
I'm really thinking about this tactically as a basketball coach, like with my decade of experience. I don't know how to answer this. Yeah. Because I mean, you're never going to be without at least 3 of the starters.
Yeah. So you just completely shade off of Plaisance and Asia Shepherd and just say if you're gonna take threes, like that's what's gonna happen, you know. But
because I mean we've seen the Aces go diamond or box and 1. And I'll talk about this a little later. They had something special out there, but there is no zone that exists where you guard 3 of the players and then just don't
triangle and 2.
Yeah, but like the triangle and 2 is to guard the 2.
Oh, it's the 2, right?
Not the 3. Yeah. So it's just like
straight line and 3. Not
I would
a zone.
love to see it. Yeah. Yeah. If there's an innovation out there,
I trust Becky Hammond to figure it out, but maybe in practice. But yeah, that's not something that Dallas would do. It just seems Dallas playing a zone is just antithetical to everything the Wings stand for. I can't imagine that happening.
Dallas would be such a productive zone team, though.
I know. Maybe they can do that some when McCowan plays, if McCowan ever plays. But I did just want to hit on Chelsea Gray having just a wonderful game in this one too. Pretty much the only thing keeping the offense afloat in the first quarter, like when Vegas was doing their normal, we forgot how to play half court offense thing, that happens every so often for the Aces. Chelsea Gray having the settling mid-range jumpers. She had one in the first quarter. She actually missed one at the buzzer at the end of the second quarter. I was stunned. I would have turned off my TV just expecting the shot to have gone in and then been confused when the score showed up that she did not get those 2 points. But yeah, just really good decision-making all around. Bullying her former rook, Marina Mabry, in the post a couple times. I just delighted in that. Really, really good Chelsea Gray stuff. I mean, we talked about this offline about how her numbers don't jump off the page, like Jackie Young's and Kelsey Plum's do. But this, I think Kelsey Plum said it earlier this week, Chelsea's the brain of the offense. We just all work off of her. We don't have to think because Chelsea makes all the decisions. And it was cool to see her just physically assert herself more in this game than she often has to.
Yeah. Late clock queen, right? Chelsea.
Oh yeah.
Great guards have this thing where she's so unselfish all of the time, makes all the decisions, but decision-making fatigue does not affect her because at the end of a shot clock or when you need a bucket, the decision is simple. I'm going to get a bucket. That's it.
Yeah. 8 assists, no turnovers. It's hard to not have any turnovers against that Dallas defense. That's just a supremely impressive performance from Chelsea.
And efficient. I think 7 of 12 from the field.
Yeah. Including missing that shot at the end of the buzzer.
Yeah. She's so good. She's so crazy good.
Yep. I miss her. All right, Evan, I think it's time for you to work your magic.
All right. Oof. I don't even know where to start. Oh, the easiest place to start is the Aces are they experiment a whole bunch. I think Becky Hammon recognizing that a team that let's say lacks depth, or rather has a strong preference to playing their five, is trying to figure out every single thing she can figure out with this team during the regular season when it doesn't matter. And that includes trying stuff on offense. Yes. Talk about that a little bit later. But defensively, they busted out a little triangle and 2 in the second half of this game. The triangle obviously is, the 3 people in a sort of zone, and then the 2 are like full, not necessarily in full deny, but like guarding a player one-on-one. And those 2 players were, unsurprisingly, Breanna Stewart and Arike Ogunbowale. So this particular possession, you can see Plum at the foul line taking free throws, and then Asia motions sees a call from the bench, and then she makes the triangle symbol with her hands, triangle 2. And then after Plum makes this free throw, turns around and makes the L and the 2. And then, so Arike is bringing the ball down. Jackie Young is on her. Plum is on Marina. She's in full deny on Marina. You can sort of see, it's weird because the 2 players are on the one side, so it doesn't really look like an out and out triangle. But Asia Plaisance and Shepard are in that triangle. And eventually it ends up with, a Jasmine Dickey banked 3-pointer. So I guess the defense did what it was supposed to. No, excuse me. Might have been a long 2, but doesn't matter. Who cares? The defense did what it was supposed to. Another time down, you can see Plum here signaling it. Again, it's weird because the 2 players they are triangle and 2ing are on the same side. So you don't get an out and out. You can see Jackie push Plum here, so they just switch it. And then it turns into a pick and roll, which, Plum has a hard time getting around. And then she ends up hitting Arike, who makes the most of it. But you can see Shepard here doing the hand signal for it should have been triangle and 2. Something to keep an eye out as we go through the season. But yeah, triangle and 2, fascinating. We've seen the new box and 1. We've seen them this game specifically out of a sideline out of bounds. They went with a 3-2 zone matchup. And then, it got...
I wonder if Natalie Nakase brought that over from her Clipper days, because that's a very Clipper thing to do.
Maybe. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience on that Aces bench in their sweet, sweet hoodies. It's just...
Which I learned were entirely Becky Hammon's idea.
Oh, that's a vibe.
Yeah.
Just give her coach of the year now.
For that alone.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see. What else we got? There was some guard-to-guard ghosting again. And when you use Kelsey Plum as your screener, good things happen. When you use Kelsey Plum to ghost, she can pop for 3. And this was probably the cleanest look she had tonight. Cashes it. Guard-to-guard ghost. And then here's one where I'm going to have to explain terminology. Don't be afraid of terminology. Always ask questions. Spain pick and roll is the ball screen followed by a back screen. A Spain veer is somebody setting a ball screen and then setting an off ball screen right after. So if you watch this, Derricka Hamby gets thrown the ball. She pitches it back to Jackie, which is the ball screen portion of it. Plum is setting this back screen for Hamby, which is the Spain portion of it. And then Stokes sets the ball screen for Jackie and then sets off ball screen right after for Plum. Plum is wide open at this point, but Jackie is she wants to take on her old teammate, Marina Mabry, and she pulls up for a long 2 here, but the set works. And if you recognize this before, they actually ran this once against the Sky early in the season. They might have run it a couple of times since then, but this is what I have video of. So Gray comes down and it's a Hamby ball screen and then an Asia ball screen. Plum sets a back screen for Hamby. Asia sets a off ball screen to free up Plum, and then it flows into, it looks like it's supposed to be a pick and roll, but Plum rejects. She's able to draw. Hamby gets a drive, and Candace Parker contests here. But yeah, Spain veer, it's a fascinating set, and it's a way to incorporate 4 very dangerous offensive players, right? Not a whole lot more, but I'll just leave with this. So here, Hamby sets this wide pin down for Plum, who comes off and looks like she's going to set a screen, but she doesn't. And then she completely loops around and sets this slice, the diagonal screen here. Asia sets the ball screen and Gray gets blitzed. And it looks like it was supposed to be Asia setting an off ball screen for Plum. Instead, Chelsea, the brain of the offense, releases it to Asia as a release valve, and then she quickly swings it to Plum, who hits a three. Next time down, they run the same play again. Hamby screen for Plum, who looks like she's going to go somewhere, and then loops back around in like a hook, slice screen, ball screen. And then this time, Plum sets a flare screen for Asia, pops to the ball, swings it back to Gray, who splits and then gets this floater. So much interesting stuff for the Aces. And I think the most fun thing is knowing that there's, or hoping, because I don't know anything at this point, hoping that there's going to be this massive payoff in the playoffs, much like the Sky last year, where with the difference between like the Aces team now and the Sky last year is we talked all season about how the Sky were like, oh, they just have so many pieces. When are they going to realize their potential? Like, what are they doing? Like, you know, does it fit? Here, like, we know exactly what they're doing and we know it fits, but they're trying so many different things. And I think come playoff time, there's not going to be a single thing they don't have an answer to, which I mean, Asia Wilson MVP, or unless you want to, you know, vote for Kelsey Plum, that's fine too. Becky Hammond, Coach of the Year, an Aces championship, who knows, right? They'll have to go ahead and do that. But it's just, they're so fun and they're always doing different cool things.
Yeah, it's a real dichotomy between that and watching Marina Mabrey run a pick and roll with a walk and just let the ball fall out of bounds because she sees no option on the roll. It's a big difference. You know, sometimes I wonder if games are just different if like teams make threes. Like Alicia Gray had so many wide open threes and this one that just didn't go in, and like the way Vegas was playing defense in the second half was just disrespectful to any thought of a jump shooter. Like some of the screens, Dearica Hamby's like sitting at the free throw line on a screen that's taking place outside of the 3-point line because she has just complete confidence that a jumper is not happening.
It was the game plan was very interesting. There were times where it was just like, oh yeah, we're good with you guys shooting threes, and then one specifically that jumps to mind is Arike has Hamby and she's like dancing with the ball. And then I think Izzy Harrison sets a blindside flare screen on Plum for Marina to like space out to the 3-point line. And then Marina catches it. Asia is in full closeout, quick head and shoulder fake. Asia's flying by and then Marina's able to set her feet and then launch. And it's just, even when that stuff is happening, they don't stop moving, right? The play I talked to you about where Arike ends up being the backline defender on an Asia drive, like that happened. I don't even think like a full, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but like a full 10 seconds maybe in real time when like they respond. And it's just the Aces always have a response. It's just some truly, truly wild stuff.
Yeah. I think Becky Hammond's a pretty good coach. I think she kind of knows what she's doing as a head coach.
Yeah. I mean
who could have seen that?
Right? Yeah. Asia Wilson shot blocking. I'll just have like all of her blocks.
Oh man. Here. She's got a real art to it. It's quite stylish.
Yeah. And you brought up Alicia Gray. I want to make sure I'm reading this right. If you on the court, off the court, Asia Wilson is an unending source of entertainment and joy and just savagery, I guess, because she posted a couple pictures of them at, where was it? Do you remember?
Six Flags in Dallas.
Yeah, I think the original or the most recent tweet, the one that like was pointed out to me was, and I'm quoting here, Leash took hella L's yesterday, but I love her. Oh, and it's just pictures of them.
She did take hella L's, yeah.
Yeah.
Got 2 of them in her name. Were you the one that told me that like you can always remember that Christy Tolliver only has 1 L in her name because she never loses?
I think it was Yeah, I think it was some dumb thing I said last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I would always forget if it was one or two, and you're like, yeah, it's only one. Chrissy Dolliver doesn't rack up that many else.
I mean, maybe that's why she's not playing for the Sparks.
So things that we're looking forward to, eh?
Yeah. You have anything?
At the risk of being completely predictable, Storm Sun. Yeah.
Sure.
I still want to
Yeah.
see if this Liberty thing is like actually happening or if they're just beating bad teams.
There's one L in their name. I don't. Yeah. I think the games are getting really interesting tonight. We're recording this Friday afternoon. Tonight, the Sky play without Candace Parker. So that's going to be something. But the game after
Just
that
completely overqualified backup Azuri Stevens steps into the starting lineup.
Yeah. There is, if you're interested in wasting 2 hours, no, I'm just kidding. But the Lynx and Mercury play a home and home on the 20th and the 23rd. So if you like that,
we do love home and homes.
we do. Yeah. There's
I
gonna be a
can't
lot
imagine that's going to be our game of the week.
No. I think maybe if we
No.
could like if we pick and choose quarters, maybe. Don't forget to vote All-Star.
Vote.WNBA.com.
Derek Hamby, please vote her in as a starter.
Vote 5 aces if possible.
Vote 5 aces if possible. Change the positional eligibilities for both All-Star voting and fantasy.
Yes, please. Yeah. And start racking up some points, Maya shines out. I need them.
Yes. All right. Yeah, that's it. Maybe shout us out and see if there are any interesting games that don't involve the Sun, the Aces, or the Storm. Please let us know if you want those as a
or the
close
Wings,
game.
honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Tired of the
Wings.
And
shout out to Mo, who keeps tagging us every time that there's a step through. I really appreciate it. It's good to know.
Definitely. Mo, link to his stuff below. He's done some really great threads, and I think, from what I understand, we'll continue doing some great WNBA threads. So link below. All right, that's it for us.